Good morning, everybody. We got a big one to review this morning to preview Week 11, the Cal Golden Bears against the Michigan Wolverines in the Program Football League. A couple of veteran owners, a couple of veteran GMs, Phil Johnson and Gerald Lane squaring off in a very key game for both teams, really. I think more so for Michigan. And this is going to be another close game, and I'll get into all that as the show goes on. Another nice morning here in California, a little chilly. Temperatures in the mid-50s right now, but we are expected to warm up nicely to the mid-70s. But weather eventually will cool down, but not this week. In fact, I had the weather up. As you can see here, I'm out in East County, so a little different weather than down by the coast. In other parts of San Diego, there's a semi-microclimate effect here. But 75 today, only about 70 tomorrow and the next day. But Thanksgiving is looking nice. 72. What's not to like about that? A little bit of 80s in there. Yeah, it's that time of year. I love November in California, Southern California. But getting back to the matchup here, you've got two teams that come in at 5-5. And as you know, you need 7 wins just to get to the tiebreaker stage in this league. And this year very well could see a tiebreaker between at least a couple of teams, because there's 9 teams currently with 500 or better records. And, it'd be nice to see somebody kind of drop out, as much as that would suck for that person. I mean, it would make things easier on everybody. Just, you'd be like, dang it, I had 7 wins. I didn't make it to the championship bracket. I mean, that's got to bum you out. In this league, especially, where we've never had more than 7 teams with better than 500 records. But at any rate, I think this is going to be another close one. I think Michigan might have the slight upper hand, but there is some things to consider here. Namely, Michigan is redshirting some of their wideouts, and they might want to rethink that this week. We'll have to see what Gerald does in that front. And then Justin Jefferson, the status of Justin Jefferson will play into this one for Cal. He is supposed to return this week, and that would be a very welcome return for the Bears and Phil Johnson. There's some injuries here. Not a lot of injuries I see, but there are some, and there are some buys, and we'll get right into it. And speaking of buys, it'll be Desmond Ridder missing in action this week. Of course, he had already lost his starting job, but you never know if he would have regained it. But Desmond Ridder of Cal will not play. He will not be available because of the Week 11 bye with the Falcons. They do have a decent quarterback in Will Levis, and they also have Malik Willis in case something happens to Will Levis. But as you can see here by this ESPN report, it looks like Ryan Tannehill is now the backup, and Will Levis is the starter, so that's good news for the Bears in this league, as they will have a functional starting quarterback who averages 5 points a game fantasy. However, he did struggle last week, and who knows what will happen against the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's an underrated team, and they're playing them on the road. They're going to be hurting, of course, after their loss last week against the Niners, so I think that Jacksonville is going to be ready to play, and they're going to make everything hard on Will Levis. And for this reason and others, I'm going to give a slight advantage to the Wolverines here. Jordan Love will make the start. He's at home against the Chargers. The Chargers are on the road for a second straight week. A lot of traveling for that defense. Maybe they're going to be beat up a little bit. Of course, that's their only guy right now. They could bring Zach Wilson off redshirt status. That would make a difference for the Wolverines. We'll have to see how much Gerald is paying attention right now, because he does have some guys on redshirt status that he could bring in just for this game, because it's a crucial game. He could still save his redshirt guys for 3 games in the playoffs if needed. I'm not sure if he's just going to try to wing it and get into the playoffs based on, just what he has active right now, or if he's going to, feel like he really needs this victory. I guess he does have a couple of more difficult matchups coming up. The last 2 games of the season are against pretty tough teams that are in the championship bracket. To this point, San Diego State has clinched. They're in, and Colorado's likely to clinch, but hasn't yet. But those are two tough teams, and he might need to save his guys for those. Perhaps I'm sure that he wants to keep as many games available for the postseason as possible for the bowl season, which goes from week 15 to 17. So that's 3 games that you would need your guys in the postseason. You have 1 game to throw away during the regular season, and that's a juggling act right there. I mean, it's tough to say what Gerald would do in this situation. But again, I like Jordan Love over Will Levis, perhaps the matchups, and I'll give the slight advantage here to Michigan, which moves us on to the running game. Let's start with Michigan, and they've got Tony Pollard and Javonte Williams, very talented duo there. They will be without Jonathan Taylor. That hurts. He's out with the bye, so no chance of bringing him into the game. They are definitely going to be dependent on these two guys. For Cal, as per usual, Phil Johnson finds a way to find the hot running back. He's got Rico Dowdle right now, who had 5.5 fantasy points last week. So that, who knows how that will play into this game. He's got Jalen Warren coming off of a hot game, and of course, he's a pretty talented back with the Steelers, averaging over 3 points. Chuba Hubbard, you never know when he can have a big game. Taking a look at Jalen Warren here, and if I can get the game log on him, yeah, he had a big game last week. He had a big game in week 9. He's been very productive. So Warren looking for real here. Second-year Oklahoma State back for Cal. I think this is a pretty tight matchup here at running back. You almost want to call it a draw for that reason. I'm going to give the slight advantage to Michigan again. But this is going to be a key to the game. Depending on how these running backs perform for each team, this might be the deciding factor in this matchup. While we're with California, we'll stick with the wide receivers, or we'll go to the wide receivers. Sticking with Cal, we got Zay Flowers, and I believe he might have played already. He did. So Zay Flowers last night played 3 catches, 43 yards, 2.66 fantasy points. It's doable, but it's not really a great game. He could qualify for the flex position there, but I'd have to say that that's kind of a disappointment for Cal because he is their number one guy. He almost hit his average, but he's coming. Yeah, last night's game is not exactly what you're looking for. It could hurt them. That's why Justin Jefferson and his status is going to be so important. They do have other guys, though. Michael Wilson. I think that California does have the advantage here at wide receiver. No doubt about it. I mean, looking at what Michigan brings, they've got Chris Olave, but he's on the bye. That really hurts. Nico Collins is a great wide receiver, and he is a top target there in Houston with CJ Stroud, but he has an issue right now. He has a calf issue, which has limited him in practice. He has practiced, so he's not out for sure, but that is something to be concerned about. And you can see this guy's had some huge games this year. And Nico Collins is very capable of taking over this game and kind of evening the score there against Cal. And if they could do that, if they can win the quarterback position, win the running back position, and then somehow win the wide receiver position, it's going to make things really hard on California in this one. You can see they have Rashee Rice, but he's on redshirt status. And I talked about this earlier that, Michigan has a lot of guys on redshirt status. They might want to think about bringing some of them in just for this game. They might want to do that. You've got Jackson Smith-Njigba, but Josh Palmer is out apparently with some sort of an injury. So what we got going here. Yeah, he's on the IR, so no Josh Palmer. That doesn't help. But I mean, a lot of guys here in their wideout group. You've got Njigba, Rashee Rice, Nico Collins, Chris Olave. And all these guys are young enough. They're redshirting, obviously, Rice and Smith-Njigba. So this is going to be a good group of wideouts going forward for Michigan. I like their prospects down the line. They've still got running game that's maybe young enough. I think Tony Pollard is actually coming up on. Yeah, he's unless he has an injury red shirt here, Tony Pollard is going to be a challenge because they're going to lose him, it looks like. But Javonte Williams, more than capable of taking over. Jonathan Williams, I know they redshirted him at one point, so he has one more season left. Michigan, it's a team that has been a near miss over the last few years. Couple years. They're a really good team, but they just haven't gotten over. And a little bit of misfortune, perhaps. But at any rate, they got a tough game here today. They got to win this one against Cal, and I think maybe they should consider pulling out all the stops just to get that moral victory. To get to 6-5, and then all you have to do is hopefully win, split your last two games against San Diego State and Colorado. Easier said than done, but it is what it is. Noah Gray, their main tight end thing here is this is almost a push position for both teams. As you look at California, they've got Kylan Granson, and he is out. So it falls on Tommy Tremble. So I think Michigan gets the nod here, but not much to talk about in terms of tight end. Won't waste much time there. The defensive line is very good here for Cal, with AJ Epinesa leading the way, the former Iowa guy. They've also got Jermaine Johnson averaging over 2 points, Ed Oliver approaching 3 points per game. That's a strong front line. Compare it to Michigan. You got George Karlaftis, one of my favorite guys, a guy that I wanted to draft for San Diego State 2 years ago when he was a rookie, and that same round, Gerald beat me to the punch. But he's starting to come of age here, George Karlaftis. They've got this Jonathan Ledbetter, but he seems to have some sort of an issue. He didn't practice, so that's not a good sign. You never know, though. Ledbetter got over 2 points last week. Look at this. Jason Owe with a big game last week. He could factor in. That's their top three guys. And they've got an assortment of guys down here that are averaging right around 1.5. It looks like they've had good games, but it wasn't last week. As far as Cal is concerned, this guy they just picked up, Yaya Diaby, I guess it is, Yaya Diaby. He had 2.5 points last week. Who knows what they have there? Maybe he has another big game. Ed Oliver had a decent game last week. And they averaged decent points, but this was a tough one to call for me. And I'm kind of leaning towards California on this one. I'm going to give them the slight advantage on the front line. At linebacker, Cal is not particularly special. As you can see, their top three guys, nobody's averaging 3. So I think Michigan has a chance to really take an advantage here at linebacker, but unfortunately for them, they don't really have a lot of guys. In fact, they only have 3 guys, and one of them is on a bye. So Gerald, I don't believe, picks up a linebacker this week in the draft, and he's going to go with what he's got. So basically, it comes down to Micah Parsons and Kalika Hudson, and I'm familiar with Hudson. He's always been kind of a disappointment, averaging 1.3. I mean, he can have a game here and there, I guess, but I don't think that he's anything special. Let's see if I can get a game log here. Yeah, as you can see, he's been playing since week 6, and that's it. And I doubt he's going to be a game changer. The 4th-year Michigan project and prospect. Yeah, Kalika Hudson, I wouldn't expect much out of him. So you have to give a slight advantage here to Cal once again. So they're getting the advantage at defense, which leads us to the defensive backs. And everybody has a pretty strong secondary. So if you don't have some big scores in your secondary, you've got a weakness. And as you can see here, a big buy is at hand with Paulson Adebo. That's going to hurt California, because if you look at Michigan's defensive backfield, very strong. They've got their top 3 guys scoring above 3 points. They're all healthy, and they're all buy free. Deron Bland, Cameron Curl, Jerwin Dames. That's a talented group there in their secondary. Very talented. And their secondary guys aren't too bad either. Jeremy Chin has some sort of an injury. Yep, he's going to miss this game, so that will be added depth that they could have used. that will not be out there. But if you look at last week's games, look at this. They're dropping a guy who had 3.5 points. He didn't make the box score. And you look at what Cal did. They actually scored pretty well last week, but one of those guys is out this week with the bye. Cal can stand up to them, based on last week's points. So this is, again, going to be a challenge for Michigan to get over, but I think that Michigan wins this position battle. And that gives them their fourth check mark. I think Michigan barely gets by in this game. It is going to come down to, like I said, the running attack between both teams. I think both teams need their running game to show up, and whoever wins that battle might very well win this game. And then, of course, you've got the X factor, the trump card, which would be what Michigan does with their redshirt status. Are they going to bring out all the guys to win this particular game? They are facing a team that has outscored them on the season, if I'm not mistaken. As you can see here, California with 433 points to Michigan's 398. So you have that going. Michigan is fighting an uphill battle in that respect. But I think a lot of that has had to do with Justin Jefferson being on the field for Cal. So that is a big part of this game, Justin Jefferson being out there. And the news I'm reading on Jefferson is that it's no sure thing. They're hoping for him to come back this week, but there's no sure thing. It doesn't look like this news is showing him absolutely coming back. And I don't know. Maybe you guys know more than I do, but if he doesn't play in this game, that really hurts Cal even more. And I see Michigan pulling this one out. And then they have a couple of big games coming up, as we talked about with Colorado and San Diego State, the last two games of the season for them. Looking at California's final two games, they've got Penn State and Texas, which are more winnable games for them. So California with a win here would stand a very good chance of making the bracket. So a really crucial game for both teams. California and Michigan. I'm excited about it. I think I have no idea what to expect, honestly, every week. It's like I hate these predictions. I'm not really good at them. I'm good at talking about the game after the fact. I can speak a little bit about the predictions. I can talk about the buys. I can talk about the injuries. I can look at past performances and things like that. But I tend not to look too deeply into the matchups because I've fallen into that trap before, where I'm like, well, they're playing a weak defense, pass defense or whatever, and then it doesn't work out. If you make your lineup based on that stuff, I don't see you having a lot of success. You can sometimes, but I wouldn't do it I wouldn't do it as a playbook. I wouldn't go to the matchups all the time and make my decisions to turn based on that. And that's why I don't really look into that too heavily when I try to preview a game. But again, I just kind of try to check the boxes. I compare the positions and then see just how much of an advantage one team has over the other. I try to take that into my final account, and then I kick out my opinion. And my opinion is Michigan gets over. They go to 6-5, and Cal drops to 5-6. But that doesn't mean Cal is out, because they have a couple of winnable games coming up, and they could easily go 7-6. And Michigan could easily lose their last two and miss the bracket. Or these two teams could be fighting it out in a tiebreaker, which makes this game even more important. So enjoy the game, guys, and good luck to you. I'm looking forward to it. Should be a lot of fun. We'll talk to you guys later.